All right. We are live. I think I have everything I need to start this project. We'll find out in a minute. You never know. All right, we'll go live on Amazon. And yeah, we're going to be looking at something different and unique today. And we're going to set it up and test it, and then I'm going to have a review coming up later. So this is the live stream testing session, and this is called the Blackmagic Cloud Pod. And this is, I guess the best way to describe it is as it's a NAS, but it uses your USB hard drives like I've got here. So it plugs in with your external drive. So you could take this from, out in the field and stick it in your computer, or from your computer into this if you want. And I think I left my card reader upstairs, but we'll come back to that. All right, so I'm just going to find a way to open this thing up. So this will be one of those things that we'll be poking around with for an hour or so, because there's going to be, I think, some depth to this. And we'll see exactly how it all comes together. So here is the Cloud Pod. And I'll let some friends come and say hello first here. Yeah, this is kind of a production device. It's really designed for video people. And we'll say hello to some friends. William Wilkinson is here. Michael Kidd is here from Las Vegas. I Am On Tech is here. Anthony Gwynn is here. Hello there. And I guess it's sort of like your personal iCloud, although I don't think it allows for an easy internet connection. So it kind of sits on your local network. And then you have to, their method of remote access is syncing to Dropbox. And Driven Films got theirs or his last night. So I'd love to hear what you think about it, if you've already started playing with it. And we're having a beautiful day here in Connecticut also. And this is similar, I guess, to the Pogo Plug. It's in that vein. Again, I don't think it's going to be very easily accessible over the internet. So that's what we'll have to see how that works. So it's like direct attached storage, but with a board. Yeah, I guess to some degree it is kind of like direct attached storage, but it sits on the network, and it's got a 10 gig Ethernet, as you can see. So that's what this thing has on board. Shirley is here from Daly City, California. Welcome. And Adam is interested in the syncing features. Oh, good. So we'll take a look at that. What's funny is that all the documentation, we'll find out when we boot it up, all the documentation says it's Dropbox only. But then on the back here, it says it syncs up with Google Drive. So I don't know. I have a free Dropbox account with not a lot of storage on it. But apparently there's some feature to sync up proxy files for remote editing, but you're not going to edit directly on this. It pushes them back and forth. And Driven is watching the stream, so I got some pressure now. Hasn't set up his yet. That's why he's watching the stream. So we'll have to see how that goes. Keith Robinson, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. I really do appreciate that. And Chris K is here from Vegas. Well, let's open it up and see what's inside. So we have our welcome here. So I did download the online manual. The problem with this Blackmagic stuff is that they make like a small, medium, and large of all these different products that they make. So like the ATEM Mini, for example, but they only do one manual. So it's often hard to figure out like what does your box do that the more expensive ones don't, because they lump it all into just one big manual. And that's the case with this, because I guess there's two other versions or similar storage devices like this. And then, of course, they own DaVinci Resolve. And they give me a free download here, which is free for everybody. So you can go to DaVinci Resolve. It's actually very good editing software. I am a Final Cut Pro guy, so I use that. Now, here's the unit. And one thing that I've always loved about Blackmagic is that they have very talented industrial designers. And I suspect this device will be no exception. It is plastic. It looks smaller in the pictures. And it's not metal. It's just a plastic box. And then on the back here, we have our 12-volt power. 2 USB-C ports, 10 gig Ethernet, 10G, and I've got a 10 gig switch on the desk here. And then we have a monitor output, which is going to be fun to play with, because apparently it has a status indicator that you can put up on the screen. And Retro says, I guess yeah, I'm guessing that's probably the case. Like just having one manual makes it a lot easier for all involved. And then we have the little power adapters here. And they also make one version for all regions, so you get all the different international power connectors here. But we are going to pick out the American one, but you got your European and your British and Asia, all the other ones. You name it, there's probably a power adapter in there. And this is the power supply. And this is a 12 volt, 5 amp, a 60 watt power supply. And I'm guessing it doesn't use all of that power. And I have, I am ready to take my ham radio technician license this weekend. So I'm going on Saturday morning. I'm excited. I've been doing practice tests and I've been passing them all the time. So that is what's going to happen on Saturday. So I may have some more to talk about on the ham radio front. All right, so here it is. We're going to plug it in, and then I've got to get some software, I think, for it. And Austin makes a good point. Yeah, so everything about DaVinci is to get you to buy more of their stuff. So they have all this custom hardware for accessing DaVinci Resolve. And then I guess they have a higher end version, which costs the same as Final Cut Pro. It's actually a very reasonably priced product. And I did install version 18 on my MacBook here in case there's some features that are unique to it. But we will find out. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is connect this to, I have a little 10 gig, a 2-port 10 gig switch here. And then this cable goes out to the internet. So we're going to just have a little local 10 gig connection here between the two things. All right, it's plugged in. We have negotiated a 10 gig connection. So there you go, all done. So now I got to figure out how to use this thing. I am going to go to the Blackmagic website and download the driver or the software for it, because apparently there's some software that will automatically, and this relies on the computer, there's software that's going to automatically create proxy files, which is what you would then sync up with the cloud services that it supports. So I'm going to go and download Cloud Store 1.01, which is their software for this. And like everything, I suspect that over time we'll see more features added via software. But I have no idea what it's doing. I was expecting maybe this thing to light up red or something, but it's just exactly how it looks here. Get these cables out of the way. This will not work directly over Wi-Fi. Of course, you can have clients connect to it that are on Wi-Fi, but it does require a hardwired Ethernet connection. And it'll work, obviously, with 1 gig Ethernet, the same as it would 10 gig. All right, so I'm going to go download or open up the software, because I have to install some software. I've installed more Blackmagic software today than I care to acknowledge here. Oops, I ejected that by accident. And here's another look at it. So yeah, I mean, I was expecting a metal box that was a little smaller and thinner, but I'm not going to, I mean, I think, you know, this is a utilitarian kind of product. All right, so we're going to install the Cloud Store software on my Mac. I'm just going to do that here real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. All right, 1.86 gigabytes of storage. And I suspect some of this is redundant with some of their other software that they have for their other products. A super chat from Tech Time with Eric. Thank you very much for that. I am using actually a Blackmagic card. I have their, was it the DeckLink Quad, I think it's called? Yes, I have the Blackmagic Design DeckLink Quad HDMI. That's what I use for my main system. It's $545. It's expensive, but it has 4 inputs that can go 4K 60 on each. But they have less expensive DeckLink products also that are, I think, worth looking at. And then, of course, you could do something like the Stream Deck, or not the Stream Deck, the Camlink. The Elgato product is really good. All right, the software is installed. So let me go and look at that. And bear with me here, folks. I'm just going to get the software up on screen. So Cloud Store. All right, so we have a Cloud Store setup here. And let me put my DND on here. All right, there we go. I got a lot of stuff plugged into my Mac at the moment. All right, so let's pull up camera 9. And, okay, so I already found it. How about that? Update. Of course there's an update. Your CloudPod is configured to only allow updates via USB. Okay, so we will rectify that. It did find it on the network, though, automatically, so that was helpful. So I'm just going to plug in a USB cable here. And I guess it's kind of a good thing. Yeah, nobody can just pop in and do horrible things to your device. All right, so now I've connected the USB cable. And this is a Thunderbolt cable, but Thunderbolt is completely compatible with everything that USB-C offers. So if you have a Thunderbolt 3 cable, it'll work with USB-C devices, and it does everything. It does full power, it does video, the whole nine. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this, and let's see if it will let us install the update now. Update. Yeah. Whoa, it's got a little fan blowing in there, if you can hear that. That's actually par for the course with, so the ATEMs do make the same noise when you update them, but you never hear the fan after that. All right, so let that update commence. Will this work on Ubuntu? I don't think they have Linux software for it yet. And I'm not sure there's a web control panel with it. So I don't think so yet. Tech Time with Eric says, it's weird because my card doesn't have a delay on OBS, but on vMix. Yeah, you know what it could be? The Ryzen processor might be your problem. You may want to check the vMix forums on that. And James is here. Great to see new products. It always is. And it's fun to troubleshoot them all so that you all don't have to deal with that after I get things going. Jay Palema is here again, and thank you for the follow on Amazon. And our update here is complete. All right, so we're going to click Done. And then now we can jump into this thing and see what our options are. So here, I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So I'm going to disconnect. Actually, I'm going to leave the USB connected for just a minute here. All right, so we're just going to keep it the same name. It's getting its time from Cloudflare. And it's got like a network address that you can type in. We'll try that on the web browser in a minute and see what we get. Yeah, so it says on the box that it supports Google Drive and Dropbox, but it only has Dropbox here. And then you can sync only proxies. That's what I really want to mess around with, because that's a really, obviously a good use case for synchronization. You sync up these smaller versions of the files that you have. All right. It doesn't seem like there's any password protection or anything like that either. So it looks like you're going to install this on a network where there is a trusted environment. And what does this button do? Famous last words. Oh, I can set a manual IP address, or you can add one, I guess. So there's not much to this, is there? All right, so now, before we go any further, I have 2 drives that we're going to connect to this thing. And what I was going to do first is just kind of show you a speed difference between the two. And we'll see what we get. CFS never gets notified for these live streams. You know, YouTube's notifications are totally broken. But if you go to Amazon and the link that's in the video description and follow me there, you'll likely get notified by Amazon if you have the Amazon app installed. MG4 wants to know, what's the cheapest way to go NDI? I would look at like one of those bird dog adapters. I've got one of those. There's a bunch of like HDMI to NDI adapters out there now, so those are definitely worth looking at. All right, so this drive that we're going to play with first this is a fun one. This one is a Thunderbolt drive with a Samsung NVMe installed, but it can also work as a USB drive. So I'm just going to plug this in, just so we can see what the speeds are before we do anything else. So like the native speed on the computer, because one of the things that I was looking at in the specifications is that these USB ports are only 5 gig USB ports. So I think we might see a performance disparity between the drive when it's on this thing versus the computer natively, or, this is the other thing, or when the drive is connected directly to the computer and the computer's on a 10 gig network. Case in point, on my Mac here, I transfer data from the computer that I'm currently streaming from. And I'm going to put this in the main video just to give people a sense of this. So when I transfer video from my streaming computer to my Mac over the 10 gig network, I can transfer a gigabyte per second over the network to the computer with my Thunderbolt drive installed. So that's a lot of bandwidth. So I don't know if 10 gig is overkill, given what this has. The other thing I'm going to need to check, I'm going to need to make some notes here, is whether or not this will work at 5 or 2.5 speeds. So I'm going to make a note to do that real quick. So this is the Blackmagic Cloud Pod. Questions 1, does it support? And I could find out pretty quickly because this network switch actually supports 2.5 in addition to 10. All right, so now let's go and load up the Blackmagic disk speed test. And I'm just going to select this drive. So this is my Thunderbolt drive connected to the Mac directly. All right, so here we go. So you can see we're writing almost at 1.8 gigabytes per second. Isn't that crazy? And that's because this drive is a Thunderbolt drive. So you get the advantage of the Thunderbolt, but it also works as a USB drive. So what I'm going to do now is eject it from here and plug it into the back of the cloud thing here. And it's firing up. So now we've got it connected there. And what I'm curious about is whether or not I can even find it on the network. So yeah, it looks like it's showing up here. So let me show you this. So there it is, Blackmagic Cloud Pod. And look at that. Now the problem here is that there's no security on this. So I just connected to it and that's it. Here you go, here's your files. So this is not a NAS kind of equivalent, is it? All right, so let's try now and see what kind of speeds we get. All right, so now we're going to connect over the network. So it's not bad. Oh, maybe it is bad. Let's see. Yeah, so it's dropping into the 300 megabytes. So you saw this is the same drive. Now, granted, I was not expecting to get what we saw before because, yep. So I suspect this might be the fastest speed we get out of this thing. And I think, because these ports are only 5 gig ports. So we're getting about 400 megabytes per second on writes, which is not bad. And I'm going to stop it after it gets to the end of this cycle. But you have a lot more potential in a 10 gig connection than what you see here. Okay, so now, what are we going to do now? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take out my SanDisk drive here, because I want to see if we can double up, like load 2 of these sessions here. So I want to see what the maximum throughput of this might be. So wait for the drive to mount. This, by the way, if you're wondering, works with exFAT along with the Apple formats, I believe. Let's see. No, actually, it's not mounting this drive up. So let me check that real quick. Let's go Blackmagic, Cloud Store, Setup. Okay, so it doesn't seem to read this drive because it is, what is this drive formatted as? Let me pop it out. So it doesn't seem to work with a drive that is formatted for APFS. And I don't think it works with NTFS either. So it's like exFAT and HFS. I'm just making some notes here. So this one's not going to work. So what we're going to do, this is because I have it formatted and I got a whole bunch of stuff on it. So I'm going to go grab one of my Samsung drives. And we'll try that real quick. So hang on one second here, folks. Let's eject the Extreme Pro. And I'm going to set up the Dropbox in a little bit. Yeah, so there's no security on this. So you really got to be careful putting one of these things on like a campus network, right? But we'll check out its control panel in a minute because I think it's going to be kind of neat. All right, let me see. I got some questions here. Recipe Bob is here. Hello there. CFS, you can call me whatever you want. Keith Robinson says, might be a good idea to quickly share USB thumb drives. Yeah, so it could do that. And I have no idea what Shazam 2 is. I haven't seen Shazam 1. And yeah, these CalDigit cables came with some drives that they had sent me to review. They no longer send me anything to review because they were unhappy with me accurately reporting about, I got like a 2-page email from them because one of their drives didn't perform all that well, and I reported as such on my channel, and they sent me a nasty email about how I got it all wrong, even though they actually said that my test results were accurate. So I'm no longer in favor with them. But you know, unfortunately, that's sometimes how some of these companies work. They feel as though, you know, I'm supposed to be just singing their praises all the time, and that's not how I operate. So I got 2 here. Let me see if I have on these, because these are both around the same speed. So I have a Samsung T7. And CFS got oh, I'm jealous. I'm still waiting for like my email to tell me that I can order it. I've been checking like twice a day. I check my email to see if there's something coming, and nothing. And I put my $5 deposit in. What happened the day that they opened up the deposits was that I was having trouble processing the order. I got like caught up in that whole thing. Remember they were having like server issues. So I didn't get my pre-order in until much later in the afternoon. So I think I'm at the bottom of the list. So it's going to be a while for me. All right, this has got, oh wow, I do have a lot of stuff on here. And I don't know what format this is. Let's see. So this one is, okay, so this one might work. Let's try this. So this is a Samsung T7. And this one is Mac HFS formatted, so this might work better. Let's see. Plug it into position 2 here. Oh, it's lighting up red now. See that? So I wonder if it lights up red when it's got like activity on it. So let me see what we got. Okay, so now that drive got recognized. And it's telling me, so what's funny is that I've got 2 1 terabyte drives. And its little control panel here says that I have 2 terabytes of capacity, but it doesn't allow you to combine the 2. So you have 2 1 terabyte drives with a total of 1 terabyte. But that drive is accessible here. So I'm going to go and run, actually before we do that, why don't we test its speed on the Mac. And I don't know how to eject things on this thing either. Let's see. Like there's no way to safely eject the drive. So I guess I'm just going to actually, that's a question. Like, how do you safely eject these things? I'll check the manual on that one. Let's see, so I've got the manual downloaded somewhere here. I have to look it up. Okay, so let's plug this in here real quick. I did make a note how to safely eject the disks, because that's going to be another question mark. Okay, so I've got my Samsung here attached directly to the Mac, and I'm going to do a speed test locally. This will be a more fair comparison because this drive is a USB-C drive all the way through. All right, so let's try this out here. And we'll start the test. Okay, so this one actually should be performing better than this. The problem on the Mac, the ARM MacBook Pros, is that the USB controller is not as efficient as the Thunderbolt side is. So these drives are never as fast as they, like this one should be getting close to a gigabyte. All right, so there you go. So that's its local performance on the USB. And this would be the performance that you would get if you were connecting to this MacBook over the 10 gig network, by the way, too. So when I transfer files to this thing over my 10 gig network, it's running like I said, a gigabyte per second. Okay, so now we've got the other drive plugged in. It's not the most elegant looking thing, is it? All right, hang on, let me see. I'm probably missing questions. Oh, I missed a bunch of questions. Andy G is here. Hello there. As I am Montech said, yeah, they got butt hurt. They didn't like the truth. I don't like to make drama here, but it was kind of unfortunate that was how they reacted. But and CFS said it took him all day to complete his Steam Deck order. And ZAM is even worse than me. So mine is sometime before June, and ZAM is October. And Jolt Dude, yeah, I do have a RetroTink 5X. I need to do something with that, actually. I wanted to do a video about VHS transfer, so that's on the docket. Unplug and pray, I guess, is exactly how it works. And ZAM wants to know, how does speeds hold when multiple people are hitting the drive? That's what I'm going to find out, because I am curious how that's going to play out. And I think I have a way of actually running 2 instances of the speed test software. So we'll find out soon enough. All right. So you saw what we had there before. And now let's run the test again. Ready? Yep, it's about 400 megabytes per second. So the next thing we're going to look at is 2 instances, because I should have enough bandwidth to really max this out. Yeah, about 400 there. Okay, so that's about where you'd think it would be. So yeah, it's about 400. So if we were to do some basic math on this, so 400 megabytes in megabits, this should be, yeah, it's about 3.2 gigabits, which is where you would typically see a USB 5 gigabit connection land. So and it was indicated as much on the in the documentation that that's how it worked. So I wonder if this red light here, that red light must mean don't take the drive out. I bet you that's what it means. Yeah, because right now I can't show this to you. Well, I guess I can show it to you. So the speed test is running, and so this is a drive indicator light here. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to close the software. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to load 2 instances of this software. I think I can do that if I hold down the Option key. Let's see. That's no in there. Let's see. I know there's a way to do it on the Mac. You can load like 2 separate instances. You know, I'm going to duplicate it and just load the. There we go. So now I got two of them up here. So one of these I'm going to connect to the first drive, and the other one I'm going to connect to the other one. So this one on the left is going to be the footage 2 drive, and then the one on the right. The good news is we're maxing out the connection here. Okay, so we're going to connect to 2 different drives. And I think what I might do here is capture some B-roll. So bear with me here, folks. And we're going to call this... yeah, so this is like a super simple NAS device that has a 10 gig port on it. But you're only going to get 3.2 gig. So you know, they would not have done as well with a gigabit because we are getting 3.2 gigabits of throughput, at least on one drive. So the test here is, can we get, you know, essentially about 6 gigabits to justify the 10 gig connection? And that's what we're going to find out right now. So we're going to start with drive 1 here. We're getting our 400 and whatever megabytes per second. And everything is connected on a 10 gig network here. So we'll let that run its cycle, and then I'm going to sync these up so that they, actually let me do it, yeah, let's do it this way. So I'm going to start both of them. I can't like start them both at exactly the same time, but I can do it pretty close. So start that one and start that one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it's maintaining. That's actually pretty good. So it is maintaining the full speed on both at the same time. So we're getting essentially 800 megabytes per second. So you see it's not impacting it when we read from both at the same time. So you're able to get the most out of these drives, you know, if you have one person on one and another one on the other one. So you can get close. That's why it's got the 10 gig Ethernet, because it's not sharing the USB bus. So that's pretty handy. And you know, I've seen these fancy docking stations that have all these USB ports, but they're sharing the bandwidth in all of them, but not this one. So we're getting distinct, you know, the full 10 gig here, at least to this workstation. That's pretty good. See that? And these are 2 different drives. So you're not seeing a mirror image here. These are 2 separate drives. I'm just checking the back here to make sure that is the case. Make sure that is the case here. Yep, they're both being written to. They're both blinking. So that's pretty cool. All right. So that answers one question. So we have that B-roll footage. Yeah, so so that, you know, that might justify the cost. And I thought for sure that it was also going to split the bandwidth, but it's not. So it is, because I was wondering, like, because I was looking at the specs on this, and the specs are 5 gigabit USB-C in both positions. And so my initial thought was, that's not going to cut the mustard, if you will, because it's not all that fast. Like, why have a 10 gig connection if you're not going to get more than 5 gigs out of the, or 3 gigs essentially. But it seems like we're getting the full, even though we're not getting the full capacity of these drives, we're getting the ability to use 2 of these at full speed for this thing at the same time. So Brightburns is asking about HBO Max. They advertise everything more than Netflix does. The only problem is yeah, I have HBO Max. I've had HBO for a while. It's a matter of whether or not you like the HBO content is really what it comes down to. I've got something fun here to show you next. So they have, in addition to their software, there's an HDMI connector here on the back. So I'm going to plug that in here. And there it goes. Okay, so now check this out. So now we've got this. This is their control panel. And let me start these tests again here. Isn't that cool? So it's actually giving us a readout of what's happening when we're running that test. And I don't know what these, I guess these dots represent storage and what parts of the disk are being accessed. So you can see this test goes in a read and write cycle. Isn't that cool? The reads are a little slower than the writes. But you can kind of see that operating and what parts of the disk are being, I don't know if there's any purpose served by this other than the fact that it looks cool. But I think that's kind of cool, don't you think? And so you can see where it's reading. So I can stop. Here what I'll do is I'll reverse the, actually, we didn't do this. We didn't have it writing and reading at the same time. So I'm going to have this one we're going to have write out. And then when it's done with its cycle, I'm going to start the other one so that it's writing when the other one's reading. Okay, boom, there we go. All right, so now we've got both going at the same time here. And so you can see it on the right there, you can see how it's writing out some stuff on the disk. And then once it's done, it erases what it writes. Isn't that cool? I mean, it's something, I guess, if you were a production studio, it just looks cool to have on your screen somewhere, right? And then you can see my Mac there is showing up as a user. So we're getting about, I don't know, 5 or 6 gigabits per second going back and forth to this Mac here. And this Mac has a Thunderbolt Ethernet adapter on board, which is why we're able to maximize that. And then it's just kind of going back to normal. And then if we had an additional connection, that would show up on the user activity. But again, there's no way to set passwords. You can make it read-only, and that might be your security. So if you were, I guess if you had a bunch of footage that you loaded on, you could set it to read-only, and that would be it. So there you go. All right, so now, what else can we do with this thing? I need to get its IP address. So let me load up the Cloud Store setup. Oops. Cloud Store setup. It is a little warm. I mean, not alarmingly so. I mean, it's just warm. I want to get its IP and see if I can connect to it on the web browser. So let me try that next here. Yeah, that's the question I'm trying to answer, John, is that. That's exactly what I'm trying to answer. My gut would be that you want, for a production house where you've got a centralized location in the office where people come in and drop their footage onto a drive or something, like you could just put it in the middle of the office, plug your drives in. Probably its lack of security might be considered a feature. So I think it's really about ease of use and efficiency of workflow. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the use case here. They have a much larger one that I think, this is like the mini version of it. Okay, so now we need to futz around with the two things. I want to see if I can connect to it over the network. So let's go to 189. I just thought it was different and unique, which is what, I'm running out of things to review lately because there's nothing happening. Like everything is just like caught up in these supply chain shortages and everything else. Yeah, so there's no web-based control panel. So I did type in the IP address that it was assigned, and it's not giving me anything. Okay, so that answers that question. So the next thing I want to do is set up the cloud syncing. And to do that, I have to plug in over USB again. So let's do that real quick here. I'm just going to disconnect this drive. It's just kind of crazy that there's no eject mechanism. Like I would feel much better with a button or something to know that it's safe to eject my drive, especially if it's one thing if you're just reading from it, but if you are writing to these drives, there's always some risk involved with that. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in here and set up the cloud syncing. So I'm going to sign into my Dropbox account. And I haven't used Dropbox in a while. I stopped using it because they restricted a bunch of things with my, because I don't pay for it. I mean, granted, I shouldn't be complaining, right? Okay, so I'm going to set up. So what it's asking me for now, hang on, let me show you what I've got here. Let me close this out. So sync name, we're going to call this test sync. The cloud pod folder, so I could probably make a new folder for this. So let me do that real quick. I'll make like a specific folder. And I have to have the USB plugged in to set this up at the moment. So I'm going to have a folder here called sync. All right, so let me pull this back on here so you can see what it looks like here. Oh, I can make a new folder in the interface here, so I don't even need to do that. So here's the, so I'm going to select, so you have a choice of which drive is connected to it. And I have a folder called sync. I'm going to set that. On the Dropbox side, I can set where I'm going to put it. So I'm going to create a folder called sync on the Dropbox side. I'm not sure how much space I have on my Dropbox either. Let's set that. And then you can go both ways for syncing or one way. All right, so I added that. Oh, well, this is handy. It tells me how much space I have left. And right now it's doing a search. So I've got about 10 gigs that I can put up there. Now, I don't know how it knows the difference between a proxy and a regular file. That's what I'm most curious about. For media files, sync both originals and proxies, because proxies is probably what you're going to want to do. And what I have, one of the things I want to test out here in a minute, let me disconnect the computer. All right, so let me disconnect the computer now that we've set this up. Okay. And for some reason, it's downloading stuff off the internet. I'm not sure what it could be downloading because I didn't ask it to sync anything, but we'll let it do its thing. Let me see if I have. Bear with me here, folks. Let me see if I have. YouTube back, go over to the Cloud Pod. Oh my goodness. So it is dumping in everything from my Dropbox into the sync folder. That is not what I wanted it to do. So it's syncing the entire Dropbox account, which is not what I asked it to do. So I'm not sure if I can cancel this. I got to plug the thing back in. I'm going to set this up so that I can configure it over the network because I'm the only one on this network, so it should be okay. Hang on a second, folks. Via USB and Ethernet. Save. Okay. All right. And I fear if I erase the files locally, that's going to wipe it off the Dropbox also. So I got to be really careful with this. All right. So now I'm going to disconnect from here. And I'll keep answering some questions here too. Robert Branch is here. Hello there. And I do review retro tech. If you go to Lon.TV/retro, you can see all of my retro reviews. The problem with YouTube is they never put these things in front of people. And yeah, I think this is going to be a, I don't know. I'm not sure. And Soundman, who is a broadcast professional, says that I really can't see a use for this other than the hard drive. Yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head about this one. I just don't see, I don't see it. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I'm also not sure how it differentiates between the proxy files versus other ones. So now I got to go in here and fix my syncing thing. So let me hit the edit button. And I can't do anything because it is, oh, I see what I did wrong. So I did not point it at the right folder. So that's what happened. So, and I can't stop it. Okay, deleting. Are you sure you want to delete test sync location? No, I don't think I want to do that. All right, so we just have to let it finish. We'll let it finish and see what's happening. But here is what it's pulling down here. And it's not downloading all that quickly. I can't see very well on the screen here. But what I'll do is I'll reset up that sync folder and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's a use case for this that would make sense for what I do. So Jake edits my stuff remotely. And so what I typically do is send him a package with some Final Cut proxy files, and we work on it that way. But that's about it. Can it work like a hyperdeck? No, so there's no video input on it. So the HDMI port is strictly to look at this control panel. I was thinking maybe it would ingest, right, over HDMI and be a capture device, but no, it is just a control panel, as far as I know. And the one thing, though, about the NASs is that most of the NASs are not as fast as this is. So that might be one reason to look at this. From a cost perspective, this is very fast. Even though the USB ports are not running as fast as they would on your local machine, they are pushing 400 megabytes per second in both directions. And we'll load up a Final Cut project that I have on one of these drives in a minute. I may have to copy it, though, from... Actually, that might be a good test, because I have it on this drive, but this won't read this drive because it's APFS. So we'll copy that over. Actually, let's do it now while we're sitting here. And actually, this is a really good test because this is a 35 gigabyte. I got to make sure I have enough storage on the other remote drive here. And Soundman says, I doubt it's as fast as my tray. You're probably right. Yeah, I think when you spend that much, it better be faster, right? That's funny. And John says, then why have an HDMI out just as a... yeah, I don't get it. I think it's... I think what it is that you want to show, like... I bet you that somebody said, hey, let's have this display that you can put in your production studio because it looks cool. That's the only reason I could see using this, is for that reason. And I guess you can get a feel, like at a glance, how much space you have left on your hard drives, right? And I don't know, like, how it knows, like, where it's getting these, because like you can see, there's a few spots where there's space available. So I have not done the Pi to NAS. I don't think it would be a very good NAS because it doesn't have a lot of data throughput, but I did do a video recently on turning it into a DVR, which is similar. All right, so I'm going to copy, let's see how long this takes. So I have 35 gigabytes. Okay, looks like it finished syncing, I think. No, it's still going. All right, so let that finish. Now it says it's going to take 16 hours to finish. I'm guessing like Dropbox probably like rate limited the yeah, I just want to like stop this and just like completely stop it and start over again. All right. I hope this doesn't delete. I don't have anything important in my Dropbox anymore, but okay. So it just stopped. And I'm going to just drop all these files out. And I'm going to set this up again. and do it the right way. So hang on a second, folks. Let's make sure I'm in the right thing here. Yeah, okay. All right, so delete all this. Okay, so we're deleting this over the network. Yeah, there's no reason why that could not be a web GUI, and there's no web GUI that I can see. And it does kind of look like a defrag, doesn't it? And Salman says, if it would copy from my hyper, yeah, if it could capture, I think that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? But it does not appear to do that. All right, so now I'm going to go back. I just want to first of all make sure I didn't like wipe out my Dropbox. Because that, like I said, I don't know. Yeah, it's all still there. Okay, we're still good. All right, so what we're going to do next. So Dave for Shmups wants to know, so this is like a very simplified NAS device. You can plug your, and it's designed for production professionals. You plug in your external USB-C hard drives and you can access them over the network. But it also has some syncing features. It's got a cool control panel, as you can see here. So it does some neat stuff, but it's designed for production. But I'm just trying to, I guess I'm still trying to figure out all the nuances of this. All right, so I'm going to set up the syncing again. This time I'm going to do it correctly. So I'm going to have a new folder. I have a folder here already called sync. All right, so I'm going to set it. Oh, that's a different one. Oh, you know what happened? It like doubled everything up. Ugh. Really? Why did it do that? Bear with me here, folks. So I'm going to have okay, so that is sync. I'm going to set that on the Dropbox end. I'm going to call it CloudPod, and I'm going to set it to that folder. Okay, so now I've got, let me show you what I got here now. So now I have that. So let's add it. So sync. So sync to CloudPod on the Dropbox side. So this folder is empty in both places. And I think, okay, so we're good there. All right, so now I got nothing in there. And now what I'm going to do is a couple of things. First, locally, I have a 64 gigabyte multi-camera demo, which I have to copy over at some point. Although I think what I'll do to speed things up is I will copy it. This is, all right, so here's an area where this might be helpful. I got 65 gigabytes to copy. I can just plug it into the computer and copy it rather than go through the mess of waiting over the network, right? So let me just copy this over real quick here. So I'm going to drag my multicam demo. Oh, really? Oh, I don't want to put it in that folder anyhow. Bear with me here. I got to just make sure this drive mounts, which it is not. And sometimes this drive like has a problem when the cable is reversed. Now it's not doing anything. Hopefully I didn't break the drive. She's not lighting up. Well, that wouldn't be good if it toasted my one of my hard drives, would it? I'm not smelling anything burning. I was just making sure. I'll try a different cable here in a second. All right, let's try a different cable. Never a dull moment in this place. And if it's a live stream, of course we're going to have something break, because that's par for the course when we do this. Sometimes, too, by the way, these Macs have some issues with their Thunderbolt ports not cooperating. Nothing toasty in there, so I think we're okay. Yeah, and this Mac only has 3 Thunderbolt ports. What I wanted to do was just copy the file locally as opposed to going over the network, but I may not have that luxury. Let me swap these out here. So we'll take the Extreme Pro off of this port this drive gets a little finicky sometimes. Okay, so it works on that port for some reason. And I'm just going to copy this one over that way. And then we'll reconnect everything up. Because I have like this 65 gigabyte file. I figured it would be quicker to copy it from drive to drive as opposed to over the network. All right, so I've got this multicam demo. And let's drag that into the, oops, nope, I'm going to go into the, yeah, that's what we wanted to do. Yeah, so you can see when you copy locally, this is a Thunderbolt drive. So it's going to be about a minute versus a long copy over the network, which would take much longer. Because this can write about, so this drive reads about 800 megabytes per second, which means my Thunderbolt drive here is writing at that level. So we'll let that copy here real quick. And then I'll take some more questions. Thomas Woodford is here. Hello there. And thankfully it did not BBQ. I think this drive is a little flaky. This is an Acasys do-it-yourself kind of thing. So this has an NVMe inside, and then it's got it's one of like the first generation combo controllers. So it does Thunderbolt and USB at the same time, or depending on the device it's connected to. So if you plug it into a USB device, it still works, whereas a Thunderbolt drive would not. All right, so that file is done being copied. So now I'm going to eject everything and plug everything back into where we had it before. All right, so let's get this out. It's going to reset all the. I like to not have things plugged in that I'm not using, so I don't get confused. Because I get confused very easily in my advanced age here. And so we're going to plug back in. Yes, I was expecting a little more out of this. I'm not sure exactly what I was expecting, but I'm finding that it feels very limited to me. I don't know what the use case is. Well, I should say, I think the use case is that this is like a network storage pool for projects where you've got multiple people contributing to it, is my understanding. What I don't know, and this is the next bit of research we have to do, is how, let me see, I know I downloaded that manual earlier. Give me a second here to see if I can find it. What I don't know is how this thing works with the proxies. Because that's my big curiosity, is that. Let's go through my trash here and see if it deleted the. I'm just going to grab it off of the software we downloaded earlier. All right, so the manual. It's like me watching paint dry. Here's the manual. So this is the family of products. This is what I was talking about, is that you get a manual, but it's for everything. So then you got to figure out, like, what does your device do that the other ones don't? So here's like the different versions that they have. And so, it's a basic network storage device. This one is kind of neat because this creates like its own network. So you could separate it from your network and just plug in. So it's got like 4 10-gig ports. I think it must cost a fortune. That's like a hunk and NAS there. So that's interesting to me. All right, so let's go down. And see, here's like an example of ports that are not on. So there's no ingest option on this one. It would be nice if you could configure one of those two ports to act as an ingest, right? Because that would certainly be quick. Here's the output monitor. And user activity panel. We saw this earlier. So here's another, right? So it's like, in other words, get it, you know, this almost reminds me of my old IT days. Can everybody log out of the server? I got to shut it down, right? As opposed to having something a little more elegant and modern here. So that's something there. Let's see, Blackmagic Cloud Store setup, we went through that. What I'm curious about here, managing proxy files. So I just don't understand, this is where I'm falling into confusion. So there's an application that generates proxy files, but how does it know what's a proxy file versus what isn't? And I'm guessing, oh, I see. So it's got to use it in conjunction with this software. So for example, in Final Cut, it just kind of integrates all of it into one piece. All right, let me take some questions. And Eric's been listening, getting supplies. Oh, he's doing his, working on his truck again. He's got to get to work, so get to work. We'll be here probably. Have I tried turning it off and back on again? And CFSC, we like to have crashes. That's exactly it. Christoph is here from Maine. And yeah, if we don't have magic smoke or toast, then we're in good shape. And then Driven wants to know, how on earth do I update the Cloud Pod via USB? So what you have to do is get a USB, this is how I was able to do it. I got the USB-C to USB-C cable. You plug it in, and then it will update. That's what the USB-C is for. And thank you, Darth Vader. I have to get a haircut. I'm having a bad hair day. It's very poofy today. So I get to a point where like my hair is manageable, and then it just goes above and beyond. But the good news is everyone tells me, all the professionals that have looked at my hair have told me that I'm not going to lose it. But yeah, just plug it into the back there and you can connect it up that way. Yeah, and on the mobile side, so there's no, it doesn't work like a NAS in the way that you can get at it without setting up a VPN or something like that. And you can go, oh, so Driven is hooking his up right at this moment. And actually, Driven, if you don't mind, could you add to the chat the use case, because you bought this to use it obviously for your work. I'd be curious to hear like what you were looking for out of it, because I'm trying to figure out how to. I know what it kind of does. I just don't see this working for my workflow or that of other people that work like me. So I'm curious what you found attractive. I'm not trying to set you up here. I'm just curious what attracted you to this product. All right, so now I have a Final Cut Pro project loaded in, and what I wanted to do here is, and I'll pull it up on screen for you in a minute, we're going to set up a multicam edit with two, count them two, let me find it on here, multicam demo. So we have two 4K 60 videos here. So this is going to be kind of replicating the editing over the network example. And these have already been optimized. And what's kind of neat here is now we can see, as we're playing back this footage, we can see what the read speed is here. So it looks like it's reading at, wow, that's a gigabit per second. So what's going to happen when we go multicam, right? Is it going to keep up? I think it will. Because we have about 3 that we can handle here. And I'm actually curious now to see how it's going to work when we have both files going. All right, so we've got 2 files here. What I'm going to do is create a multicam clip. All right, so now we're going to Oh. All right, we'll roll with it. It needs to optimize the multicam in addition to the other one, but we'll just roll with it. And I'm going to add, go to my angles. So view, where is it? Show in viewer, angles. So I did optimize, but we ended up screwing that up. So now you can see as I'm playing back essentially 2 at the same time, you can see our reads have doubled, but we're not dropping any frames. And what's neat about Final Cut is you're doing a 2-up edit like this, you can switch between one and the other pretty quickly here. So what I can do, most of the time, let's see, let's go back to the timeline here. Most of the time it will let you, I know what I did wrong. I got to create a project. So let's go and create a project. Okay, so now we're going to do that. I'm going to grab my multicam clip here and just drop it onto the timeline. And there we go. And I can then, what's neat is that as you're editing, you can see, you know what, I want that other angle. Boom. Get the other angle. So you can almost live switch it like you're doing a real edit here. But this is working fine. And I'm essentially editing over the network here through the box. But you know what? Like looking at the bandwidth here, if I added a 3rd clip, that would be pushing it. Because you can only get about 3 gigabits or so out of these drives, even though they're capable of more. And we'll do a little like that. And then go this way. And what I am going to do, actually, is maybe I'll delete the individual optimized clips and just optimize the multicam. Well, we'll see. Believe it or not, it's actually doing fine with the H.265 here. So, but you can see like how. But it is a real-time status bar, because once I hit the space bar to slow it down here, you can see it goes right down to nothing. And maybe what I'll do while we're working on this is set up a multi-view here. But yeah, I'm editing over the network. I've got my little Acasis USB thingy plugged in. This is not I'm using a Thunderbolt cable, but it's working as a USB drive. But I'm editing just fine. But, you know, I'm maxing out the bandwidth essentially. So if anybody else connected to this drive, I would start to see performance issues. Because I've only got about maybe a gigabit, if that, of bandwidth left. And that's because I'm editing multicam. So each of these 2 streams that you see is pushing about a gigabit per second. Now, if I was on my local computer, this drive does significantly more bandwidth, has significantly more bandwidth. So I could probably get 8 or 9, you know, probably up to the limit of what my computer is capable of on that front. And you can see the stuff kind of running there in the background. So basically, I went outside with with my phone and my tab and my iPad, which can shoot 4K 60. And then here, check this out. So if you don't like a cut, you can go in here and just delete it. And then, so I had this one cool shot. So what I can do is get it to, granted, this is not my gift to media here, but and we'll go right to here and then cut it back. There we go. Yeah, it feels fine. If you were to bring me down here and not tell me that this was on the network, I wouldn't know it. But I suspect if I bring in a 3rd clip, that's probably going to kill it. And we're also at high quality. We're not editing proxy files. So this is where like you would switch to a proxy file, and then you'd have enough bandwidth. But I like the fact that you can see kind of what you're getting out of it. And what we found earlier is that we're getting about 3 gigabits per second per drive on here, because it is only 5 gigabit USB. So, you know, if you're looking for fast network editing, and I guess there's some value to that, right? You could have this thing on the network. Somebody could be working on one part of a project, color grading it or whatever, and somebody else can be working on something, some other part. But Final Cut, I don't think allows for that kind of multi-user work on it. So here's Driven Film's explanation. We are a video production studio, and I, the owner, also have a YouTube channel. We'll be using it to quickly pass footage off within the office rather than using our NAS, which is an older Synology. So that I was suspecting that's probably what you would look at something like this for, because it is a lot faster than what you would have with a Synology, and it's a lot cheaper than buying a big honkin' 10 gig NAS that could get you to those speeds. And Driven says, we generally work on 1 or 2 big projects at once, so this is a great option. Plus our NAS is 70 terabytes and getting close to full. And they shoot mostly red, and they're generally filming 4K to 8K on a regular basis. Wow. So you're definitely filling that stuff up. These are HEVC files that we have on there, but they have been, what you were looking at though, the project file, these have been optimized. Oh, it looks like I was able to squeeze it in there. These have been optimized, so we're actually working off of, and I'll show you exactly what codec these are. If I go to the info button here. So these are ProRes files essentially now, because they've been optimized for the edit. So you can see up here it says optimized, which means that we are working off of a ProRes optimized file. The original is HEVC. And what I'm interested in too is like what it's like when we scrub through this. So let's go and here, let me do one thing real quick here. I want to set this up. So I'm going to go and create a 2-up that I have. Oh, I don't have like a 2-up. Let's see if I have something in here that's pre-built. So I want to have like an overlay of one thing over the other. Go with this one. All right, bear with me for 1 second, folks. So we're going to have that one, and then on the right, we're going to have input 4. Isn't that cool? As I scrub through this, so there's some neat visuals, right? Like it's got some. So that I think is kind of cool. So you can kind of see it all just kind of operating in real time as you work your way through it. So that's neat. So let's see if I can adjust the size of these windows here. I can. Look at that. Oh, that's just, oh, it just does the zoom. All right. I'll come back to that. Oh, shoot. I totally screwed this up. I'll come back to that. I need to make a 2-up. But that's neat. All right. Let's take some more questions. And so for Driven, it was $395. Yeah, and I guess you're only working on so many projects at once, so you'd have your most active projects on this thing and then dump them off later. And the larger one, so first of all, 10 gig networks are not as expensive as they used to be. So for example, on the desk here, I've got this switch. I got 2 10 gig ports on this switch. This switch costs, I don't know what it costs right now because it's out of stock, like everything else is right now. This is a QNAP switch. So you could get, for a couple $100 now, if that, you can get a 4 or 5 port 10 gig switch and just wire everything into your network that way. So what we've got on the desk here is I have it uplinking to my network at 1 gig over here, but these 2 ports are 10. So the computer and this are communicating over that local connection there. And that seems to be working pretty well. But you could, finish working on your project, say, back out of it, and then somebody else can log in and keep working on it, right? That's another use case. So you're not passing drives around. And on location could work. Yep. That's another use case. Bring your switch with you. It is portable, as are the drives. And I'm guessing, like, if you have a use for this, you're going to know it, right? That's going to be the path. Bear with me here for 1 second, folks. I'm going to build out another one of these virtual sets, just 'cause I want to get this set up for my video that I'm going to shoot later. So we're going to say loop darker, and we're going to add layer 1. Going to have camera number 9. Oops. Yeah, so I think, it performs like I would hope it would. Let's put it that way. That's actually a good thing. So give me a second here to get combobulated. Zoom out just a little bit. I'm just making up a little 2-up for when I have my video later. So I'm going to shoot this tomorrow. And then we're going to do, I don't think I can, I got to do a little bit more research on this before I finish it up. But I'm getting, in some ways it's kind of a simple, it's simple, which is a good thing, to be honest with you. Have something simple that is easy to understand. It lacks security features, and I think that's going to be a problem if you are in a busy network and people need to understand that it has no security, because it really doesn't. It's got like no security. So you got to be ready for that. All right, here, check this out. Now we got a nice one. So you can see where it's reading. And it kind of lumps it all in as like one big block of storage. But it's, I'm guessing they must be, they're going to be adding, storage for Google Drive later, because it's on the box. It's just not it's not built in yet. But from from the standpoint of an edit, like this is full. These are not proxy files. These are the originals. And like I said, if you blindfolded me and put me down in front of this computer, I would not know that this is off a network. So from that perspective, I am intrigued. Oops. All right. I never had one of these like 2-ups set up before, so now I do. But yeah, it's cool. I'm one of these people that would look at this all day just to like be mesmerized by it and see who's connecting and whatever. And what I could also do is connect another Mac up to it and kind of do all that kind of stuff too. But I mean, I think that the performance is good. I would have liked to have seen full 10 gig Gen 2 speeds out of each drive, because it's capable of that. Although you'd have a bottleneck if you were doing Gen 2. So that could be, and Soundman's got 170 terabytes of storage, and not, yeah. So what's insane is that we have on the Mac right now this project that is, it is all of 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. That's it. And this is 65 gigabytes for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Is that insane or is that insane? And you can see it's like pulling 2 gigabits per second just to play back the 2 streams here. But they're 2 distinct 4K 60 streams. So you get a feel for, like, if you do 8K, like what's that look like, right? It's insane how much storage these things can take up. So yeah, I can totally sympathize with that issue. So yeah, I'm curious to see how they develop this thing further, because a lot of its features are locked into its built-in software. It feels very limited to me, but the use case is, all right, here's where I would say the use case is. I'm trying to justify this, right? I bought this, by the way. They didn't send this to me. The use case is as follows. You want USB drive speed over your network. That's it. Because both of these ports, as we tested earlier, can give you the full 5 gigabit per second USB simultaneously. So that could be it. Yeah, we'll have to see. But it's a little clunky in that there's no eject button. Need to get users out. And I guess you could look on your control panel to decide whether or not they're on there or not, right? So I wonder if I eject, will that remove everything? So let me go back to my, I'm going to quit Final Cut. It is kind of neat to watch, because you never really know how, when Final Cut writes to the disk and what it's doing. You can actually see it doing its little background writes to it. All right, so now I'm going to eject the Blackmagic Cloud Pod. And if we go back to, yeah, so I ejected it, but it's still showing me as a user. But I know I'm out, so I could detach the drive here at this point. I'm just not sure when that user disappears from the list. Interesting. And Billy, getting some of that maple syrup. Yeah, he's got some fresh batches. I think he's boiling up syrup as we speak. He's doing quite a bit. It's his busy season. He's got a lot of maple syrup to make. John, thanks for the follow on Amazon. CloudPod. All right, so let's put that on the desktop here. I'm just setting up my shoot for later today. Or tomorrow, I should say. So I don't know of a good USB NAS you can use as a Plex server. I think there's one, who makes it? Which one did we look at? We looked at one, so QNAP has a Thunderbolt NAS, direct attached storage. Who's that other company? TerraMaster's got one also. Plug it right in. Yeah, so I think I need to do a little bit more reading on this just to figure out, I want to be able to properly explain the use case on this, because it is a very narrow niche. However, as we saw, the editing performance is enough to handle a non-proxy file. I think editing proxy files, if you have multiple people hitting it, is probably going to be the way to go. I am not seeing any performance bottlenecks on this. So if you have pretty fast USB drives, they're going to function great on it, as we saw. And you can expect to get 400 megabytes per second in either direction out of both drives at the same time, provided you are on a 10 gig network. So that is kind of the gist. The performance is good. It's not splitting things up or anything else. It's giving you the full performance. So that is good. All right. Well, I'm going to do some more homework, but I am probably going to be ready to shoot this tomorrow, so look for the review over the weekend. And it's a neat little device. I think it's, you got to be careful with it because there's no security on it. But I see some value for multi-user editing. And I think DaVinci Resolve might have some stuff with that. I got to check. And David Bound says, speaking of my brother's syrup, we gave some syrup to this family in Orlando. Awesome. That's great to hear. Well, you know what? They should contact him because he does, he sells like barrels to restaurants. So he's always up for high volume stuff. He would love to talk to them. But I'm glad to hear that. That's a great piece of feedback, especially if they are folks that are connoisseurs, if you will, of the maple syrup world. And I have not heard from Eamon yet. I know they're doing a lot of traveling, but I'm sure we'll be getting some new bird dogs in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of their other stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, let's load up. Let's do it from the top here. So I'm going to go and reconnect to the drive over the network. And we will, just one more thing before we pop out of here. So I've got this multicam demo. So let's load up Final Cut off the network. And there, actually, let's do it again. I want to do it with this control panel open. So let me just quit this real quick. And little bottleneck there as it's wrapping things up. Let's see if it I got the swirling ribbon of death here. The beach ball of death. Do, 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 do. And it's stuck. So much for the quick demo. All right, I'm going to do a force quit here. That's not good. I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah, it's not responding for some reason. All right, let's try this again. All right, so I'm going to pull up the 2 up here. I just want to show you what happens when you load up the file. All right, so let's jump to the 2 up here. I'm going to record this just for B-roll. Multicam demo. So load Final Cut Pro. You can see how it reads everything as it pulls it in. That's kind of neat. But yeah, I mean, it's playing back full speed. Like I said, we're not using a proxy edit here, so we're pushing, a gigabit per channel here. But it's super quick, and you can watch that thing drop right when I hit the key. Boom! Isn't that cool? Spacebar, start, stop. Start, stop. And then I can go in and maybe do another edit here. So maybe I'll say, I want to cut this over here. And we'll probably see it right out. Yeah, see, you did a little bit of writing there. And then why don't we add a lower third? We'll put some clouds in maybe. Going to cross it over to 2 clips. And this is my MacBook Pro is able to do this kind of in real time. So let's see what happens now when this renders out. So you can see it's rendering that out now. And you can see those writes happening on the disk. I can expand it, maybe make it a little bit longer. And we'll let it do some background rendering. That's kind of neat, right? It's just kind of fun to see it writing to the disk like that. I think that's kind of cool. So yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, I am going to come back a little later. And yeah, he will sell you as much syrup as you can take in a truck there. So, and it's good to hear Billy. Yeah, I really, his here, you really can taste the difference. Like he's got a, it's the artisanal quality there is what he really puts into it. All right, well, I will be back again in the near future. This was the Blackmagic Design Cloud Pod. There's no more iPods, but you can buy a Cloud Pod. And you saw, like, you can see it kind of lighting up as you access the disk. So it's got a little drive indicator on it. But you got to be really careful pulling the drives out of it. So be aware of that. But yeah, it seems like, I mean, honestly, I don't see any real. I really don't feel like I'm on a network drive right now. It's that quick. It did give me a frame rate warning there, didn't it? Let's see. I actually left that warning on just to see. Oh, see there? Now it's dogging a little bit. So what's causing that? Because it shouldn't be. This has been rendered now, so that shouldn't be. Oh, look at that. It was pushing up over 3. So for whatever reason, that's pushing more bandwidth. Yeah, it's like getting close to its limit there. I wonder if it's playing, I don't know how it renders this stuff. That's going to be a good example here to point to. Because you can see right now it is at 2.9, 2.83, which is right at the limit. But then once it gets off of that, it's back down to 2. So that little section there runs at a higher bit rate for some reason. Yeah, so if you got I would say if you've got 8K stuff, it might push it. Although let me try one other thing, because we'll go back to that speed test. So one thing I didn't notice or look at on the Blackmagic disk speed test was it'll give us a rating for what it can support. And so what I've got right now plugged into it is the fastest drive that we can use. So let me open that up real quick, and let's take a look and see. And we'll run this with the intent of looking at. So what will happen here is in this section down here, how fast, it'll give us an idea as to what it could handle over the network. So yeah, so you can see it down here. It'll give you an indicator one way or the other. Okay, so wait for that to finish and stop. Okay, so here's the final readout. I'm going to save a screenshot of this so I have it, because this is important. This is not going to stripe these drives either. They can only be separate. So from the ProRes standpoint, we can do 4K 60 both read and write. And this would be if we were capturing with this, which you probably wouldn't do. But when you get into like 8K, forget it. 24 FPS maybe, or DCI, but that's it. So you're going to have to go with proxies. Because you can see on the proxy side, you can do 8K if you're doing an H.265 proxy. So yeah, not super high end, but there you go. All right. Okay, well, I got to run. And so David Ballin's talking about the iPads. Yeah, so the iPod is gone, no more. The iPod Touch that I reviewed a couple of years ago is the last one that they'll have. And yeah, if it's got any kind of connectivity, although the iPod Touch was basically an iPhone without the phone. So you could still use one of the older iPods, I guess, that just has the music playback capability. But that's pretty much it. All right. Well, I would say CFS. I would say RAID 5 or maybe RAID 10 would be the best of both worlds, right? Because it's mirrored plus the 5, the striping. RAID 0 is the fastest, but the most riskiest. but I have mine is set up with, I'm pretty sure I'm RAID 5 on mine. I have to check. I did a video about that actually. So if you look at, I have a Synology setup video, and in there I kind of talk about the different options and which one you might want to choose. All right, well, I will be back again before you know it, and be doing a little bit more homework, get my review ready for this one, because I'm starting to figure out the use case. And I will catch you all in the next video. And look for more on my YouTube channel, and also follow me on Amazon. And Driven is impressed with the Dropbox sync speed so far. Yeah, I got to play around with that a little bit more too. And good. I'll see you all on the next one. Thank you all for tuning in. Oh, I got to thank some folks here. I want to thank Keith and Tech Time with Eric for your super chats. And I'll be back again before you know it, so stay tuned.